The Western Conference Final is set. Who has the advantage between Colorado and Vegas? Plus, the Canucks go back to the Sedin's well again, and the Habs can close out the East. All that and more on today's Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday, everyone. I'm Rachel Donner from Locked On Flyers. I'm here each and every Friday with Gil Martin of Locked On Islanders. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets. If your first $5 bet wins, head to FanDuel.com to get started. Gil, how are we doing today?
We're getting close to the Final Four here, conference final. One of them set, one of them could be set as soon as tomorrow. And now is when I start to get that feeling that the season is winding down.
Yeah, there's obviously like days without games on TV anymore. Although I would suggest you check out the PWHL Walter Cup finals this week. It's a lot of fun. But that being said, yeah, we have our Western Conference final matchup set. We are going to talk about the management change in Vancouver, as well as preview Game 6 in the Eastern Conference finals coming up, or the team that could make it to the Eastern Conference finals, I should say. Vegas versus Colorado is a really interesting matchup to me for the Western Conference final. I think it doesn't feel right, but the way the bracket is set up, it feels like the eventual correct answer to all of this.
Yeah, I mean, given that some team almost had to emerge from the Pacific Division, then yes, this is the matchup that I think makes sense. I think the best three teams in the West and maybe in the league all played in the Central Division, but the NHL playoff format being what it is, this makes the most sense.
Yeah, I do think that Vegas did what had to be done, and they did rise above it in a lot of ways in the playoffs, right? Like, I just felt like they were super inconsistent during the regular season. That's obviously why they made the big coaching change and hired John Tortorella in the waning last few games of the season. And there just seems to be a different level to this team that has emerged during the playoffs.
Yeah, they do seem to have taken it to a different place that they couldn't get to consistently during the regular season, and that's Torts. I mean, one thing about John Tortorella, he will give almost any team that hires him a short-term bump.
Yep.
And then in a year or two, he will start to wear out his welcome, has been sort of the typical pattern. But
don't know anything about that. That's for sure.
What was that?
I don't know anything about that.
No, nothing at all. But you do get a bump when you add John Tortorella, and I think we're seeing that in Vegas. And then sort of the other question that hangs over everything is he's the interim coach. He's only signed up for the rest of this year. Even if they lose in the conference final, has he done enough and does he want the job full time?
I think that's honestly what's great about it for him, is that he's in the driver's seat of all of that. And we'll see where Vegas winds up when all is said and done. I'm sure that will have a lot to do with it, right? And if for some reason they do win the Stanley Cup, I think riding on that high and the team maybe wanting to bring him back could change things. But he could also just go back home and hang out with the dogs. I don't know what's in his head about that. I do know he's very serious about this and this series. There was of note the fact that he did shake the other teams, the Ducks coaches' hands before exiting, but he was apparently not in the handshake line overall at the end of the series.
Torts will be torts.
Yeah, although it still is very weird to see him in a suit on the bench as opposed to the tracksuit. But, I guess, again, things are different in Vegas and he's taking it a different level of seriousness. But I think when you look at the team itself on the ice, Mitch Marner is just grabbing hold of this team in a lot of ways that I think, yeah, obviously he was good during the regular season, but for some reason on this team versus on the Leafs, he's been able to get to a different level here.
He has, and you always kind of wonder about, he had that reputation in Toronto. Oh, he doesn't come up big in big spots. Well, he's kind of disproving that in Vegas this year.
Yeah, I mean, he absolutely is. And is it the team around him? Is it the culture? I don't know. But there's certainly something different to his game in these playoffs. And you can certainly see that. And then, of course, you have like Jack Eichel with the experience, right? And the Stanley Cup to show for it with this team. And I think his game has also been a huge factor here.
No doubt. I mean, Eichel leads the NHL in the playoffs with 14 assists in 12 games.
Yeah.
And then you have Marner leading the entire league in scoring with 18 points in 12 games and a plus 11, the highest rank in the NHL right now. And then you add the goal scoring from Pavel Dorofeyev, and you've got a
Hmm.
really good combination of offense for this team.
Yeah, now if you go to their opponent, the Colorado Avalanche, who have been, I think, also very good in these playoffs. They've been a little bit more methodical than Vegas, I would say, but they've just been continuing to play their game and have a remarkable, goals per game average in the playoffs that's over 4, which is like they are the team in this league who has figured out playoff goal scoring in a way that like we haven't seen. And so I think that's going to be a really interesting puzzle for Vegas to solve.
It will be, and it won't be easy because the Avalanche are just so deep. You just
Yeah.
go down this lineup. There are no weak areas here. I mean, think about this. Cale Makar is 9th on the team in scoring in the playoffs so far. Yes, it's a
Yeah.
small sample size, only 9 games, but like he's 9th. I mean, it's this team is deep. They're talented, and it's not an easy team to face.
Yeah, one of the things that is really interesting about Colorado in the playoffs is that in the regular season, their power play was not good. It just wasn't, but they have figured it out somehow in the playoffs here. And, like their regular season power play percentage was 17.1%. And now they're up to 25% in the playoffs. And that has made a huge difference for them as well.
It really has. And, all regular season long, I'm looking at the names on this roster and looking at the talent and looking at the numbers. And I'm like, how is it even possible that their power play could be near the bottom of the
I know.
league?
I know. It was the mystery of the season to me, to be
Yeah, it made
honest.
no sense whatsoever. I mean, a team with McKinnon and Natchez and Landeskog and Taves and Makar and even Brent Burns at the age of 40 can run a power play still at this stage of his career. And to have that team ranked in the high 20s in the league on the power play was mind boggling. It's not shocking to me that they figured it out in the playoffs, but it almost makes you wonder, like, did they just flip the switch? Where was this all year?
Yeah, and the best teams figure out how to turn it on in the playoffs, and the Avs are certainly showing that. I think they have had some difficult games here, in this run in the playoffs, but they've only lost one game so far.
Yeah. And they've only lost one game while facing two of the best teams in the National Hockey League because, again, I think the three best teams in the league may have all played in the Central Division this year.
Right. So in terms of the finding ways to win factor, I feel like the Avs have a little bit more of an advantage here. I think the Ducks played Vegas really tight. And it was a much more difficult series, much more of a grind. And I feel like, the Avs are going to be a lot more fresh here.
Yeah, I think they will. And before we even, drop this topic, I got to give credit to the Ducks. I mean, yeah,
True.
they lost the series, but this is a team heading in the right direction. You look at the young talent on this team, the speed on this team. If I'm an Anaheim Ducks fan, I can't wait for next season to start.
Yeah, honestly, so much bright future thoughts ahead for them because they just have that young core that's learning how to do this together. I think it's going to be a force to reckon with for sure moving into the future there. But also very excited for this Colorado versus Vegas series, and they will get going next Wednesday. They already put the schedule out, which that's crazy for the NHL to be
Yeah,
that
that's rare.
prepared.
Very rare.
So thanks, NHL. Appreciate you.
Do you have a
Uh,
prediction for the series?
I think Colorado wins this, but it's going to be in like 6.
Yeah, that's my prediction as well. Avs in 6, and it's not going to be an easy 6.
No, it is not. But at the other end of the spectrum, the Vancouver Canucks are trying to get back to their winning ways. They've been doing it for a little while, and they've brought in some old friends to try and help them out. We're going to get into the Sedin's return to Vancouver in management this time, coming up next.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are here, and every possession matters. If you're looking to get even closer to the action, FanDuel has a great offer to get you started. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's right. Turn $5 into $150 in bonus bets just for getting started. I like using FanDuel during the playoffs because everything I need is right there in one place. You could check stats, trends, and matchups before making your picks, which makes the whole experience feel a lot more informed. Whether you're looking at player props or just following your favorite stars, it adds another level of excitement to every game. And it's really easy to navigate the app, and it makes playoff basketball even more engaging from start to finish. So, head to fanduel.com to get started. That's fanduel.com. FanDuel, play your game.
If you've got a sweet tooth like I do, you know how tough it is to find that perfect treat without all the sugar, and that's why Cotton Candy 5-Hour Energy Shot brings that nostalgic flavor back in a whole new way. This is that classic cotton candy taste you remember, but with a tasty caffeine boost and zero sugar. It's a quick, easy way to satisfy that sweet craving while keeping things simple and on the go. The flavor really does bring that throwback fruity vanilla vibe, and it's surprisingly smooth. I like how convenient it is too. It's just a small portable shot I can grab whenever I need a little pick me up. It's become my go to when I want something sweet without going overboard. Bring on the sweetness with Cotton Candy 5-Hour Energy Shots, available online now at 5hourenergy.com or on Amazon. Don't forget to check out the Everydayer Club for ad-free episodes and access to a group chat for your favorite team and the Locked On NHL show. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/everydayer club to learn more. Gil, we are going to turn our attention to the Vancouver Canucks, and I would like to say I'm surprised, but I am in no way, shape, or form surprised that they have hired Daniel and Henrik Sedin as co-presidents of hockey operations. And they in turn hired Ryan Johnson as the new GM, a guy they used to play with, who has been in the organization for a while now, kind of working with the team in Abbotsford in the AHL, but I feel some kind of way about this for the Canucks because as somebody who covers the Flyers, which is a team that is known for hiring former players into coaching and management in the organization, witness Danny Briere and Rick Tocchet as their GM and coach, Keith Jones as the team president. So, I get it. I understand it. I have lived it. But I do think that the Sedins being identified with Vancouver and winning in Vancouver in a lot of ways. I know they didn't win that cup, but
It came close.
nonetheless, they came close and they were consistently good and they were a huge part of that. And so the most recent winning mentality that the Canucks have is with the Sedin. So I certainly understand that to some degree.
Yeah, I mean, look, and it's amazing how the two of them never are separated. I mean, it's like
Right.
unbelievable. They get drafted together with the big trade. They play their whole career together. They go
Yeah.
into the Hall of Fame together, and now they are co-presidents of hockey operations together. And what before this, they were assistants to the general manager together. So,
Yep.
I mean, uh, these guys are always together, and all joking aside, all of the twin things you could say aside, the key question for the Vancouver Canucks, will they be successful at what they're doing? Because this team finished last in the league this year. They need a full rebuild. They need to break it all apart and build it back together.
Yeah, I think this is what makes it interesting because you look at this hire and you can roll your eyes, right? Because you're like, oh, this is the most obvious thing they could have done. But you also have to look at what they said and how ownership is relating to this decision. Because as we've known, Canucks ownership has been, I think, invasive in some ways and has been kind of a roadblock to finding success there and consistency there and being like, are they overly involved in the day to day operations and not letting management do their thing, but also has management drop the ball? Yes, also true. So it's really hard to say like exactly what has gone wrong with the Canucks. I think it's a lot of different factors, but the way that they're talking about it, and I have to go back to the Flyers here. They're talking about this rebuild the exact same way that Keith Jones and Danny Briere are talking about the Flyers rebuild. And you can argue how the Flyers have gone about it, but the way they're approaching this as a true rebuild, um, demanding some patience from the fans, like we're going to do it right because we're going to draft and develop, and then we're going to put other pieces around them, and we're not going to try and put band-aids on it. We're not going to do any retools. This is a true rebuild. And that kind of messaging is very important, I think.
It is, and again, not speaking from experience in any way, I can tell you that if you try to take shortcuts with a retool, you end up in the muddy middle and you never get out of it, or
Yeah.
not never, but it takes a long, long time to get out of that muddy middle. If you're putting band-aids when you need a tourniquet, you're not going to solve the underlying problem. You may tread water, but you're not going to make real progress. And I think the admission by the Vancouver Canucks organization that this is what we need to do. We need the fans to be patient. And I think the intelligence of Vancouver fans, I think they will be patient and understanding that sometimes it's a process and you need to go through that process to get to where you want to go. That's a sign of maturity among fans. But I think if the team shows they have a plan and they're implementing that plan, they will get a certain amount of patience from the fan base.
Yeah, and obviously, the Sedins have almost like a get out of jail free card to start off with here, again, just because of their reputation. But, one of the other things that they talked about in the announcement is just the culture around the team. And, there's been a lot of drama there with, is this locker room broken and conflicts between players and all of that. And that you kind of have to not just build the skills to put together the team, but you have to build the team culture in order to get a team to play cohesively and bought in. And I think that's going to be a huge part of it. And I think the Sedins can be like the leaders that can show the way on that front. And I think that part of it is really good.
It is. And, I will say this, part of the reason the Canucks ended up last in the league is because it took the front office so long to try to fix the problem of the chemistry in the locker room. And this was a team, the talent level was not last in the league, but they were less than the sum of their parts because of the lack of cohesiveness in that locker room. Changing the culture is a necessity. It's what put them where they are right now.
Yeah. Now, I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with Adam Foote, right? Because he kind of inherited a mess, but also didn't help the mess. And
Right.
so I'm very curious to see what they decide to do here. And, Rick Tocchet walked away from that organization, and there was a reason for that. And, I certainly hope that there's room for growth here. I'm not saying Adam Foote is the right answer as far as a head coach goes. And, if you're wanting a clean slate to really start over, maybe this is the way to go in terms of just like clean house. And, there's not a lot of coaching openings right now. And so they could have more of a pick of candidates if they want to, uh, you know, go that route. But that's going to be an interesting next step for Johnson, and then, secondarily the Sedins here.
It will be. And I guess the question that I'm asking is, you said Adam Foote didn't solve the problem in Vancouver this year, but could any coach have really done a lot with the way this team was set up, not just talent wise, but emotionally?
Well, I think Manny Malhotra is hanging out there, and he's been heard in conversations around the Leafs opening, but at the same time, he has been in the organization in Abbotsford, right? And so he could move up along with Johnson if that's what they decide to do. They could end up in a bidding war, but I think they're two very interesting opportunities that Malhotra could be considering and weighing off each other when all is said and done. And, to go into the pressure cooker of the Toronto Maple Leafs versus a chance to be the hero in Vancouver. I don't like that's a tough call there.
Yeah. And then obviously, how much money is each team going to pay you has to enter into it as well. So
Yeah. Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see. But it's not dull in Vancouver. Or Toronto for that matter.
Yeah, yeah, but I do think that there's a lot of optimism in the Canucks fandom here. I think there's skeptical optimism, and I think that's the right approach, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that has to be the approach when you're doing a full rebuild, and let's see how they do with it.
Yeah. All right. Well, coming up next, we usually have our weekend ahead, but there's one game, at least in the immediate future tomorrow, that could determine the other team in the Eastern Conference final. We're going to get into that matchup coming up next.
Today's episode is brought to you by Rocket Money. If you've ever opened your bank account and thought, where did all my money go? You're not alone. Keeping track of subscriptions, spending, and bills can get overwhelming fast, but that's where Rocket Money comes in, helping you take control of your finances all in one place. It tracks all your subscriptions in one spot and can help cancel the ones you don't need with just a few taps. And Rocket Money automatically categorizes your spending so you could actually see where your money is going, and you could set budgets, get alerts, and stay on top of upcoming bills. It just makes everything feel more organized and gives you a clearer picture of your finances day to day. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/locked-on. That's rocketmoney.com/locked-on.
All right, Saturday, we've got game 6 between the Montreal Canadiens and Buffalo Sabres. The Habs have a chance to close out the series after they won 6-3 in game 5. And it was a really interesting game. And obviously, you look at that third period, right, where it was just all Buffalo, but Montreal was able to hold them off.
Yeah, they were able to hold them off. They got the job done, and Buffalo threw a lot at them, and the Habs were able to figure out how to keep them at bay, and it was a huge road win for the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah, especially that huge second period they had with 3 goals, capped off by the Nick Suzuki power play goal that kind of gave them the 2-goal lead that made their job a little easier in the third period, but, nonetheless, still a difficult task given how Buffalo has been playing. And, Buffalo outshot Montreal, but Montreal's just figured out a way to hamper this Buffalo team that shoots early and often.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the third period, the shots on goal were 20-3 in
Yeah.
favor of Buffalo, and yet Montreal had the only goal and it came on the power play.
Right, and, that was a huge factor in that game 'cause, Buffalo was 0 for 2 in their power play, but I don't think Buffalo's going away in this series. That's the thing, is that, I still think anybody can win this series. Obviously, Montreal has the upper hand here, but what's your take on how game 6 will play out?
Yeah, this is I wonder where the pressure is in game 6 because
Mm.
if you're Montreal, you do not want to go back to Buffalo for game 7. You want to close this out on your home ice, and yet the Sabres are obviously, it's win or go home. So there's pressure on both teams, and it'll be interesting to see how a relatively inexperienced playoff team in Buffalo. There's not a lot of players with a lot of playoff experience on that roster. How do they handle game 6 on the road with the season on the line?
Yeah, and when you look at a team like Buffalo, who was obviously a surprise to make the playoffs, if you thought about it from the beginning of the season, I think maybe 2/3 of the way through the season, you're like, oh, okay. But obviously, this is a team that doesn't really have the playoff experience, and there are some guys on Montreal that have a lot more experience here, and kind of know what it takes for the long haul to get there. And I think that's the difference between like a new playoff team versus an experienced playoff team, is that they understand what the grind is for the full like 16 wins that you need in order to win the Stanley Cup. And I think this is where Montreal has the advantage. And it's not that Buffalo isn't capable, like they can do it, but does Montreal just have that extra little kick to their game, especially being at home?
We're gonna find out. Excuse me. And then, the other thing is this. Is there an arena with a better atmosphere for a playoff game than Montreal? I don't think
There is
there is.
not. I'm
No.
sorry. Sorry to all you other teams, but including our own, but there is
Yes.
just not, right?
I mean, it's just special. It's
Yeah,
just special.
yeah. And I think that's gonna be a huge factor. I think they're also like, they are not looking ahead to, Carolina, but Carolina's just been resting, right? And so any opportunity that the Habs can have to get maybe a little bit of extra rest, before the conference final is gonna be good for them, so there's a lot of motivation for that reason alone.
Yeah, and then, the other question I have from a Sabre standpoint is goaltending
Mm.
because, they went back with Luukkonen for this game. He was not outstanding. Who do they go with in goal for game 6 with the season on the line?
Yeah, that is a huge factor as well, to not have the goaltender who's dialed in, who has just taken control of the net, right? And both goaltenders have had really good performances and not so good performances. And so it is hard to tell. Whereas, they're just dialed on the Montreal side. So Dobish has just, earned the right to be in the net for the duration. So I think that is a huge question here, and that's again kind of the difference between the more experienced team and the newer team.
Yeah, but we'll find out Saturday, and maybe there's a game 7. Maybe we will know the final 4 by Saturday evening. So lots to look forward to, even if there is only one game all weekend.
Yep, I think so. But we will be back next week to talk about it. And Gil, you will be back on Monday to talk with hosts from around the NHL channel on what's going on with their teams. Or maybe we're gonna talk about Carolina just sitting there doing nothing. Um, I think that's an interesting perspective in and of itself. But that will, of course, do it for today's show. Thanks so much for listening. If you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get your favorite team show ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Go to lockedonpodcasts.com/everydayer club to join.